All right, given everything that's going on with COVID-19, we wanted to provide you an opportunity to view the presentation that we are giving for World Handicap System certification. This is a recording that you can reference at any point in time, and we'll go through what we would talk about in person at our seminars that have unfortunately been canceled up to this point. So my name is Kyle Wolf. I work with the Golf Association of Michigan in the course rating and handicapping. And today we're going to talk about what the World Handicap System is, some of the features of it, fundamentals of the World Handicap System and handicapping in general, some things that you're going to be responsible for the events that you run at your facilities involving handicaps. We'll talk about the formula and how the formula has changed with the World Handicap System. We'll also talk about the stroke index allocation, which is a new term for the handicap holes on the scorecard, and then par and how those are now more important than ever due to some of the changes to the handicap system. We'll talk about some options that you have at the club or course level to maintain handicaps or provide assistance to people that might need it, or to catch those sandbaggers that we know are out there at every course. And then lastly, we'll talk briefly about the exam, how that works, and prep you for that exam. And that is something that every golf course needs to, every golf club in Michigan needs to take in order to be able to offer USGA handicap indexes to their golfers or to people that sign up online that choose their home course. All right, so the World Handicap System, why do we have it? And the main reason is that prior to January 1st, when it launched, we had 6 systems used across the world. So we had the USGA handicap system here in the United States, but we also had the Kongu, which was used over in Europe and a few other places, the European Golf Association, Golf Australia, the Argentine Golf Association, and then the South African Golf Association, or Golf South Africa. And so all of these associations were doing things a little bit differently, but we decided that it would be best in the interest of the game and promoting handicap use across the world to have one unified system. And we actually have a set of framework that we already do one system for other areas of golf across the world. So we have one set of rules and one set of equipment standards and one set of amateur status rules that are overseen. And so we want to apply the same concept to handicapping. And then also the fundamental reason that we have a handicap system here is so that we can take our handicap index and take it from course to course, previously in the United States, but now across the world. And so we can take the handicap index that we develop wherever we play and take it and be able to have equitable competitions and games and wagers when we travel. So starting January 1st, the World Handicap System was launched, and over the course of the year 2020, it'll be rolled out in different fashions in different countries. So a lot of this is based around the course rating and how the way that the new system, or the World Handicap System, is going to handle course rating is the exact same way that we've always done it. So there won't be any changes there for us, but some of these other golf courses need to get up to date. So that's why there's a year rollout period. So like we talked about, in terms of a governance, there's, just like we have one set of rules of golf for all golfers across the world, one set of rules of amateur status, one set of equipment rules, now we'll have one set of rules of handicapping to be able to use across the world, and it will be overseen by the USGA and RNA, who also jointly oversee the rules of golf, rules of amateur status, and the equipment rules. So that structure is in place. We're just continuing to use that. But what does that mean for you in terms of how the hierarchy works? Is that you have the USGA and the RNA at top, and then there's a national association. So for us, that's still going to be the USGA, but for the people in Argentina, that's going to be the Argentine Golf Association as the national association. And then here in the United States, below that, we have what are called Allied Golf Associations. That is essentially the GAM for you. You'll probably see that term AGA on the exam. So if you do see that, just keep in mind it's Allied Golf Association. That's just another way of saying GAM for you here in Michigan. And then there are actually 59 of those across the country, typically per state, but some geographic areas have one for a metropolitan area. So like the Metropolitan Golf Association that oversees the tri-state area in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. That is an example of one that isn't tied to a specific state. So there's a few of those, but mostly per state. And then below that, in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of how the World Handicap System is administered, you have the golf club, golf course, and the handicap committee, and then flows down to the player there, your golfers at your facilities. So the USGA is the body that issues the USGA handicap or World Handicap in the United States here, and they do that through the Allied Golf Association, or the GAM, through us. Now, what new for this year is that now all USGA handicaps in the United States will be calculated by the USGA. So just like 3 years ago, we were using a different handicap provider for that calculation. Those certain other few associations across the country that do use a different vendor will now have that vendor send out the information to the USGA. The USGA will calculate it and send it back to them. So what that means for you all is that everyone in the United States that has a USGA handicap will have a GHIN number that will be given to them. So if they're playing in events at your course, if they don't have a GHIN number that you can look up in the system, they don't have an official USGA handicap index. So it'll be a lot easier to track that now because it's all being centrally computed by the USGA. So the rules of handicapping book is something that's available to purchase as if you want a physical copy. We also have the PDF available on our website, which will show you where that is at the end of the presentation. And you can also view it on the go on the USGA website, usga.org, under Playing tab and then Handicapping. And that will essentially give you that resource to have at the tip of your fingers. We definitely recommend that you have a book in your club, pro shop or whatever to have, but you can access information electronically as well. So if you're out there on the golf course and need to look up something, or you're at home, you can definitely do that as well.
Do you remember the first time?
Do you remember the first time you played a round of golf and kept score?
Wow, was that a great feeling.
I have cards.
Nice.
Everyone who plays can establish a handicap.
And realize the same benefits.
Most of all, have fun.
And four net 3.
And now we want to make all those things easier
And more accessible for everyone.
With the World Handicap System,
The World Handicap System.
Golf has been evolving and modernizing.
And now the major handicap systems in the world
Are coming together into one unified system.
The system has been designed for all golfers,
Regardless of ability,
age,
gender,
Or nationality.
get out there and have some fun.
And make sure when you finish playing,
Post your scores.
So that's a nice little promo video there that the USGA and RNA put together. And we have a lot of videos like that available on our website. And we'd be happy to share any of those with you. They're also on our YouTube page that you can grab to use to help educate your golfers. So if there's ever any of those videos that we can help, or any information that we can send over to help educate people, please let us know. We'd be happy to do that. We're sending out this information in the handicap update emails we send out on the 1st and the 15th of the month. So they're getting that information that way, and they can view it on our website. But if you want to do anything specifically to your golfers to send out, if there's any resources that we have, we'd be happy to help you with that. Because this is a recording, I know you might have some questions throughout. So if you do have questions, feel free to email us at handicap@gam.org, or you can call us at 248-478-9242 extension 114. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the presentation here. So we're going to keep on going here. Now, some of the fundamentals of the handicapping, again, we get back to the reason that we have the World Handicap System is so that we have a handicap that we can take to different courses and use to play recreationally or compete on an equitable basis. So golf is a unique sport where you have people of very wide range abilities being able to compete equally against each other. At the core of the World Handicap System is the course rating system, or formerly the USGA course rating system, and that's the same that we've been using since the 80s. And what that means for you at the course is that those ratings won't be changing. We won't need to come out and do that unless it's on a 10-year cycle, which we come out and do, but there won't need to be any changing of the actual course rating to make sure that the World Handicap System works. But again, we want to be able to have this so we can take it wherever we play, whether it's in the U.S. or internationally. And then I like to say it, anytime I see the word in the USGA, they say compete. It's just another nice way to say gambling. So we know that that's important, and that there's a lot of fun games that people play at courses, and to be able to do that in an equitable way as possible is very, very important to the health of the game. So a couple of definitions. We'll go into more detail in these going forward, but here are a couple key definitions for the World Handicap System. First one is the low handicap index. And that's going to be your lowest handicap index achieved by a player within the last 12 months. And we'll talk about this when we get to this specific slide, but this low handicap index only applies once a golfer has 20 scores in the record. So you want to keep that in mind. The next three things are built-in safeguards to prevent the upward movement of a handicap index. So the hard and soft cap, there's a reduction or a limit on the increase of a player's handicap index over a rolling 12-month period measured against a player's low handicap index. So we'll talk more about that, but again, these next three are safeguards to help prevent handicaps from going up drastically. The playing conditions calculation, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, it's a procedure used to evaluate if course and or weather conditions on the day of play deviate from normal playing conditions to the extent that they have a significant impact on players' performance. And we'll talk a lot about that in a little bit. Exceptional score reduction is going to take over for the tournament score reduction. So one key thing you'll see here when we talk about it is that this is looking at any score, not necessarily a tournament score. So anytime a score differential, which is at least 7 strokes or 7 points better than the player's handicap index at the time the round was played, there's going to be a reduction. And we'll see that if it gets up to 10, then there'll be a larger reduction. The next, net double bogey, covers the max score that we can post for handicap purposes. And that is going to be the par +2 plus any handicap strokes that the golfer would receive on that hole. So this is a replacement for equitable stroke control, for those of you that were aware of what that was before. And then finally we have net par, which is what we've used in the past. Another way of calling this is par plus. So if you have not played a hole, you will use net par or par plus any handicap strokes you would get on that hole to make sure you have a score to post for that hole. And then again, that's if you don't play the hole. We'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. So the other key component we talked about of the World Handicap System is the course rating system. So again, just like before, this is the same system we've been using since the 1980s, and you won't have any change in your ratings at your course. And really all we're doing is that when we come out and rate the golf course, we're evaluating the course for how it plays for the scratch golfer compares to how it plays to the bogey golfer. And we use that to come up with the course rating and slope rating of the golf course. And that all funnels back into how your golfer's handicap index is calculated. So we're trying to look at, again, it's a relative difficulty for that scratch player compared to the bogey player. So a lot of times you'll see course rating listed on the scorecard, and this is the evaluation of the playing difficulty for a scratch player under normal course and weather conditions. Okay, and then you can see it's typically expressed as a number with 1 decimal, so 71.8 here in the picture. And this really, if you think about it, is what the scratch golfer is going to shoot about 20 or 25% of the time, because that's how often we play to our handicap index. And it's not a average. We're trying to figure out your true playing ability. So you're not going to play to it more than 20 to 25% of the time. But this course rating number is really the true difficulty of the golf course. A lot of people mistakenly think of slope as how difficult the course is, but really the course rating is going to be how difficult the golf course is for that scratch golfer, and essentially relative to par, and what most people would say, or how they would determine difficulty. The bogey rating is the equivalent number. You don't really see this on scorecards, but this is the equivalent number for the bogey golfer. And then what we do is we take the course rating and the bogey rating, and that gets turned into the slope rating, which is a relative difficulty factor. So the higher that number is, the more difficult the golf course is for a bogey golfer compared to a scratch golfer. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's more difficult, because it's a relative factor. So if you're a bogey golfer, the higher the slope is, yeah, the probably more challenging it's going to be. But it's the slope rating is not necessarily a great indicator of true difficulty. All right, big change for the World Handicap System is the way that a course handicap is calculated. So previously, we did our course handicap calculation with just everything that's in black here, and now we're adding this component of course rating minus par in. So, and really what you'll see in a second of what that is, but basically before we were centering it around, completely around course rating, and now we're still using course rating as part of it, but we're going to center it around par, or make it relative to par. So because that's how most golfers think, or that's how a lot of golfers think about how they played their round, how they did to par. Whereas before it was how they did relative to the course rating of the tee that they're playing. But you could see a big change in numbers for golfers, and that's because of the new way it's done. But the most important thing is that there is no net impact on the actual new calculation, because if we look at it from a numbers perspective, it's going to be the exact same as it was before in terms of golfers playing against each other and competing. You know, we all might lose 3, you know, go from an 11 to an 8, but if we all go from an 11 to an 8, there's no net impact on the actual outcome of our competition. The other benefit of this new way to calculate course handicaps is that we don't have to worry about section 3-5 adjusting for different tees. If you know what that is, a lot of times that was not done properly. Under the new system, we won't need to do that. The only adjustment we'll have to make is if there's a difference in par, which you might have for men and women, or maybe certain tees have a lesser par. It's not super common, but it could happen. But the big takeaway that you'll want to kind of think about, and we'll say this again in a little bit, is that if a golfer is playing a tee that had a course rating that was less than par, they're going to see their course handicap come down a little bit. If a golfer was playing a tee that had a course rating that was greater than par, then they'll see their course handicap go up compared to under the old system. So here's a chart just to kind of get an idea of what it looks like. So if we key in on the last column here, this target score, this is what we would shoot based on our handicap. So you can see that under the old system, the top way here, we have a very tight range of course handicaps. So if I play from the black, I get 18, but then if I move up 2,000 yards, I only lose 3 strokes. All right, that we know that we also have to take into account the difference for the rating as well when we do that. But this is not very intuitive to golfers. Whereas if you start at 20 and you move up 2,000 yards and you go down to 10, that's a lot more intuitive. So you see a larger range of course handicaps under the new system, but our target score remains the same. So the target score under the old system was we took our course handicap and we added it to the the course rating, and we got our number. So 18 plus 74.2 rounded to 892. Likewise, all the way down here, whereas now we have under the new way, we have our course handicap, which is 20, but instead of adding it to course rating, we're going to add it to par. And so we get 20 plus 72 equals 92. And you'll see that there's no net impact on our target score, what we're supposed to shoot. All we're doing is we're just centering it around par as opposed to the rating. All right, so again, kind of key thing here is that the target score is going to remain the same, so there's really no net impact in terms of how it's calculated. There's going to be greater variability between the different tees when you move different tees. So, and that is more intuitive to golfers, and you won't have to do any adjustment from competitions for different tees, except if the pars are different. And you'll typically only see that when there are different pars for different genders. And then just as a rule of thumb, the golfer's playing from a tee with a course rating less than par, their course handicap is going to decrease. If they're playing from a tee with a course rating greater than par, then their course handicap is going to increase. So you're definitely going to get questions. You're going to get people come up to you whenever we get out to play and say, I haven't touched a golf club in 4 months, 5 months. My handicap is, I used to be a 12, now I'm a 7. You know, what the heck is wrong with this world handicap system? And it's just because chances are that golfer is a senior golfer that's playing the short tee, and we're playing maybe a tee with a course rating of 67.2, but everyone that's playing that tee is being adjusted down. And if they were competing against other people playing other tees, there would be that built-in adjustment for the difference in course rating under the old system. So again, there's really no net impact, but you're going to get that question from golfers, especially given that the majority of our members, and hence your members, are over the age of 55 and play tees that have a course rating less than par. All right, so If we kind of take our next step, so we have, kind of think about it, we have three different quote unquote handicaps. We have our handicap index, which we can use to take to any golf course, and it will change based on the tee that we play at that golf course. So we take that handicap index, it's portable anywhere. It gets turned into a course handicap depending on the tee that we're playing at the given course we're at. And then our playing handicap is the final number, and that number is going to be my course handicap times any handicap allowance that I might have for the competition. So if we're taking 90% of handicap, that final number is going to be our playing handicap. Okay, so and then the other thing that will be included in the playing handicap is if there's a difference in tees and there's a difference in par, then that will be adjusted in our playing handicap as well. So you'll see in this example, we have a 15, we're taking 85% of our course handicap. That's going to turn and get rounded to a 13. So the same rounding principles apply. If it's 0.5 or higher, it's going to round up. If it's lower than 0.5, then it will round down. The nice thing about this playing handicap is that when you do use playing handicaps, or you do use handicap allowances, which is, we'll talk about the USGA recommendations for that. But a lot in a lot of cases, most tournament software, and definitely the tournament software that you get through the GAM, USGA Tournament Management or Golf Genius, does all this automatically. So you don't need to worry about this math that happens automatically. You can set it up, and all these defaults will be in the system for you to pick to use for your events. All right. So when you're running events at your facility, there are definitely some things that you'll want to take into consideration. This one here, so this is going to be on the quiz, so you might want to pay a little bit extra attention to this. But in terms of a committee that's in charge of a competition, so a tournament, there are a few things that you can do. You can set the maximum handicap index for entry. So an example of that would be like the USGA qualifiers. So they'll set a max of, I think for the US Open, it's 1.4 handicap index or less. You could set something up like that to prohibit anyone higher than that to register. You could also set a maximum handicap index a player is permitted to use. So for example, for some of our net events, we'll say that the highest a golfer can use is a 20.4. Let's just throw that number out there. But we'll allow a 22.7 to sign up, but we're going to bump them down to a 20.4. So you could do it that way. You could also set a max course handicap. So a lot of times you'll see that clubs or courses will limit it to a max of 36 because they don't want anyone getting more than 2 strokes on a hole. You could set that in for your course handicap, and similarly, you could set a max of your playing handicap as well. And the only thing that you can't do for a competition is you can't change their actual handicap index, because that handicap index is what they use when they go play, regardless of if it's in your event or a match with their friends or somewhere else. That handicap index is not something that a committee in charge of a competition can change. All right, the allowances, these have changed, these recommendations. So definitely recommend looking these over. They're listed out in one of the appendixes in the rules of handicapping as well. But these are recommendations based on the data that the USGA has gathered over many, many years. So these are tried and tested. And you'll see one of the big changes is the single stroke play or Stableford is now recommended at 95% as opposed to 100%. And but there's also a note in there in the rules of handicapping book that it says for events that have less than 30 golfers, that they recommend going to 100% instead of 95%. So there are certain things, but typically what is on here is what we would recommend that you use to create the most equitable play possible. And you'll see that there's a difference between stroke play and match play as well. The one other thing that you'll see in here is scramble. So finally, the USGA recognized that scramble is a game or a format of golf that people play. I know it's shocking it took them this long, but people actually do play scrambles, and they're actually recommending some allowances to how to best handicap that. So this is great. I'm sure many of you that run these events have been using these percentages or similar percentages, but now there's an actual one that you can go to and point to and say this is what the USGA recommends for this type of play. The other thing too, for the tournament software, those of you that use tournament software, this will be built in, so all these allowances will be able to be chosen as an option to use, and you won't have to worry about remembering which is which. You can go in there and get that set up, and in most cases the default is going to be the USGA. So it'll be easy to implement, but you'll definitely want to take a look at this because some of them have changed from previous. All right, what should you do for an event that might span multiple days? So if you are doing a multi-round competition, the recommendation is to use the handicap index that you used at the start of the competition for the entire competition. So to use a handicap at the start of the competition be used for the duration of the event. And that's for your administration ease, and then also so that golfers know what their handicap is over multiple days. Because now we'll talk about, I'm sure you've heard that the handicap indexes update daily now. So we still want the scores to be posted at the end of each day, but from just getting everything done and printed out, it's a lot easier to use one index. So that brings up the question, or a couple questions. Well, what happens? What date should we pick? So it's really up to you and your competition committee and how you want, or what date you want to do. We for our events at the GAM, we are going to pick a date, but we aren't going to tell the players that date until after the date is passed, so that they don't manipulate their handicap index or post scores or don't post scores because they're waiting for a certain day to pass. We'll let them know what date we use after, so that they can check their handicap index, which they're required to and responsible for under the rules of golf. But we're gonna not tell them until later, in hopes that people won't manipulate their handicap. We're not going to stop everyone, but the other thing we're going to do is we're going to be pretty intentional about moving around days and not being predictable. So we might do a Friday for a Monday event one week, and the next week we'll do a Thursday or a Wednesday, and keep switching back and forth to keep people on their toes. And then the other question that we've got at a lot of the seminars that we've done already is, well, what happens if we pick a date, let's say 7 days before, and all of a sudden the day of the tournament we run, or we look at their handicap index and it's magically two strokes lower than the one we're using. Well, in that case, it's probably a good idea to run a list of the current handicap indexes for everyone, and possibly put in something in the rules of the event that if the golfer's handicap index varies by X amount, let's say more than whatever amount you want to do, that there'll be a reduction of that golfer's handicap to the the lower amount. And that's something that you might have the luxury to do with using tournament software, or you might have to make an adjustment on the fly. But to protect the field, we would definitely recommend that you be aware of that, and the golfers and handicap index possibly moving down drastically from the current date to the date that you use for the competition. Some other clubs, some other clubs have told us that they're just going to continue to use the 1st and the 15th because that's what golfers know and that's what they're used to. And that's perfectly fine as well. You as the handicap or the competition committee can decide what you want to do for those multi-round events. But we do recommend that you at some point in time tell the players what date you're using, because that's their obligation and their right to check their handicap and make sure that it's calculated correctly under the rules of golf. The other question that comes up quite a bit too is you'll be able to pull a report that will be able to look at the golfer's handicap index on a certain date, or you'll be able to pull that in the tournament software as well. So even though it might, currently show the current date, you'll be able to select the date 5, 10, 12 days in the past and be able to pull everyone's handicap index as it was calculated that day. All right, again, if you have questions, feel free to let us know. All right, some of the fundamentals of the handicapping, of the World Handicap Index. So currently, or previously, we needed to have 90 holes of golf in order to get started. We're now trying to allow golfers to get started quicker by only requiring 54 holes of golf to be played in order to establish a handicap index. So again, it's 18 or 9-hole rounds. When they're just getting started, a new golfer, there's no time limit to completing these scores, but we'd recommend that they do it on the day they play, just like every other golfer. And then when the golfer is first starting, it's recommended that they post hole by hole to better assess the potential of the player. And really the reason for that is that when you don't have a handicap index established, the max score that you can post on a hole is par plus 5. So if you do it hole by hole, it will automatically take that into consideration, whereas if you just typed in a total score, that might not get adjusted properly. So, and that's only for a new golfer. We'll talk about the max score to post in a little bit for other golfers, but for a new golfer, it's par plus 5, or just easy way to tell them just to post hole by hole so they get that started. This one here is on the quiz. You'll need to know that the maximum index that can be calculated is 54.0. That's male or female. Previously, it was 36.4 for male and 40.4 for females. So it's a pretty big jump, but again, it is to make golf more inclusive and to get people to not feel like they have to be quote unquote good to have a handicap. We just want to make competition fair and people to be able to track their progress and how they're doing. But again, for your events, if you want to limit the handicap index used or the course handicap for the golfer for the event, you can do that and you can cap that for your events. All right, the max score that a golfer can post for handicap purposes is net double bogey, or what another way to say it is double bogey plus. So again, this is the most that you can post for handicap purposes. If you're playing in a tournament and you make a 12, you're going to take that 12, but when you go to post a score, you're going to reduce it based on the par of the hole. You'll add 2 strokes, and then any handicap strokes that they would be given on that hole. So this is why we'll talk about it in a little bit, but this is why the stroke index allocation of the handicap holes are more important than ever, because we need it to apply net double bogey properly. So a lot of people have told us, well, this is going to be a lot more challenging for people to understand than the old ESC, where you just had a number based on your course handicap. And definitely understand that concern. What we're recommending is that if you don't want to teach people how to do this properly, or you're not sure that people will do it properly, just have them post hole by hole. If they post hole by hole, the system will adjust it automatically for them, and they won't need to worry about knowing what this is. So that would be our recommendation, to do hole by hole posting, or recommend that to golfers. And we'll show you that that is actually easier than ever now, because they've added hole by hole score posting to the GHIN app, in addition to the website, and then also on the kiosk, at the score posting kiosk, if you have that at your course. So it's a lot easier to do hole by hole now. And I know that might be a challenge for people to post, but it is an option, as opposed to trying to explain to them how this net double bogey or double bogey plus works. All right. So again, so this golfer here, they have their course handicap of 18. So that means they get 1 stroke a hole. So you'll see here that this golfer had a score, a quad on a par 4. So when they type in 8, it's going to adjust it down to a 7, and that's going to turn that 95 to a 94, because the highest they can post again is double bogey. So 6 plus any strokes that they get on that hole, they get 1 stroke on that hole. So that the highest they can post is a 7. All right. In terms of what to do if the golfer starts the hole but doesn't complete the play of the hole, we're going to use our most likely score. And so this name is the same as it was before, but the way that it's done is different. So when a player starts but does not complete a hole, the score recorded, again, for handicap purposes, is the most likely score. So in terms of what that looks like, you'll typically see this in match play or 4-ball best ball competitions, where you might pick up because you're out of the hole, or your partner is going to get a better score than you. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of how it is. If you're on the putting green and you're within 5 feet of the hole, you're going to add 1 stroke to your score. If you're between 5 feet and 20 yards from the hole, you're going to add 2 or 3 strokes, depending on the position of the ball, the difficulty of the green, and the ability of player. And likewise, if you're beyond 20 yards from the hole, you're going to add 3 or 4 strokes based on those same factors. Now we know that, the sandbagger is always going to pick the higher number in terms of the strokes. So they're going to add 3 in that second row, and they're going to add 4 in the fourth one. And that's, and at the end of the day, that's going to be, come down to the player's best judgment, or the people that are there with them and their collective best judgment. But this is, again, just to allow for these types of scores to be posted, because a lot of people don't think they should post them, but they actually should. So our recommendation for those match play events or best ball events that you do, throw this on the rule sheet or on the scorecard, so that people understand how this works, and it might make it so that people start posting these scores more frequently. Okay, that we just talked about, if we started a hole but didn't finish it, what happens if we just didn't play a hole completely? So that process is net par, which we talked about at the beginning. But basically, there could be a few things, or a few scenarios. One example could be that maybe there's some maintenance work being done on one hole, on the 16th hole that day, and you put a temporary tee in the fairway. Instead of calculating a new course rating and slope rating with that temporary tee, you'll just have golfers post net par, or par plus any handicap strokes they would get on that hole for that given hole that day in their score, regardless of what they actually made using the temporary tee. And again, that's just for handicap purposes. If they're playing a game and they want to figure that out on their own, that's fine. But for handicap purposes, we recommend that you use net par. The other example where this could come into play is, if you only if, let's say that you couldn't finish the 18th hole because of darkness, this would be how you would post that score for the 18th hole. All right, so certain conditions need to be met in order for scores to be acceptable for score posting. They need to be an authorized format of play, which is covered in Rule 2 of the rules of handicapping. Scores in both match play and stroke play, including multi-ball or team competitions where players have not completed one or more holes, or players are requested to pick up when out of contention of the hole, can be posted. So that's what we talked about, using those most likely score guidelines. Most people don't think you can post those, but you actually can. And then the course needs to have a current course rating and slope rating, and it needs to be made during the active season. So for Michigan courses, the active season is April 1 to October 31st. But if you go to Florida, Arizona, or other warm weather states, those states you can post all year round. But here in Michigan, April 1 to October 31st. The other thing too is when you are searching for courses, or you hear people searching for courses and they can't find a certain course possibly, chances are that course may not have a current updated course rating and slope rating, because it has to get redone every 10 years, and not every course in Michigan, for whatever reason, doesn't see the value in that. But when you are searching for courses, a lot of times, and we'll cover this in a little bit, but a lot of times when you search, searching less is more. So if you don't know if it's golf club or GC or golf course, just type the first name of the course, so Saskatoon, instead of GC or golf club or golf course. Just type the first part in when you're searching. The scores need to be made and played under the rules of golf, or the modified rules of golf for players with disabilities. They need to be accompanied by at least one other person. That person doesn't necessarily need to be playing golf, but they need to be, there needs to be a marker. And this was actually started in 2016, and this was really the first kind of step in this whole World Handicap System process, where we took some of the things that other associations or other golf authorities across the world were using and brought it here to the US. So this is kind of the first step there. Scores can also be posted if you're following a model local rule, so the alternative to stroke and distance, or if you're using preferred lies or lift, clean, and cheat, as we like to say. Scores that are not acceptable to post are scores from events that are alternate shots or foursomes, scrambles, or when you're being coached. So you're giving a playing lesson to someone, that golfer cannot post those scores. However, if you were caddying for someone in a GAM tournament or a USGA qualifier, and you were quote unquote coaching them while you were caddying, that would be okay, because you're serving a different capacity there. This one is going to be on the quiz here, so you'll definitely want to know what types of scores you cannot post. Just like before, for 9-hole scores, we're going to take a 9-hole score, and then we're going to combine it with another 9-hole score once we get that in your record to create an 18-hole score differential. They don't need to be from the same course. They can be just any 2 9-hole scores will get combined into one 18-hole score. The other thing that has changed slightly, and is more for 18-hole scores, is that in order to post an 18-hole score, now you need to play at least 14 holes. So if you play 14 holes of golf, you would post an 18-hole score with your last 4 holes. You'd use that concept of net par, or par plus any handicap strokes that you would have got on those holes. And then if you play 7 to 13 holes, you'll post a 9-hole score using the first 9 scores. But if you play 6 holes, you cannot post that score. And that's just what that's saying there, is that if we do play at least 7 holes, we're going to post a 9-hole score. And if we played 7 or 8 holes, we'd use net par for the remaining holes if we didn't finish it. All right, and with the World Handicap System, now our handicap index is going to be updating. This is on the quiz as well. It's going to be updating every day, and it's going to be at midnight local time. So for the Golf Association of Michigan, that's going to be Eastern Standard Time. We have a few courses in the UP that are on a different time, Central Time Zone, but because 99% of our courses are in Eastern Standard Time, that's what we'll use. But it is important that golfers post scores the day they play. One, because that handicap index is going to update the next day, but also because that score posting, we want it to be included in the playing conditions calculation, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And if they don't post the day that they play, that score won't be included in that calculation. But if they do post it on the correct day, so let's say that I played today and didn't post today, and I posted tomorrow, if I tagged it with the right date, any playing condition calculation that would have applied on the previous day would get applied to my score as well. We know that this is going to be a tough habit for people to get used to, because so many people for so long were used to waiting until the day before the 1st or the 15th when handicap's updated to post a score. But again, it's a lot easier now to post scores, phone, post on your computer at home, on the club computer. There's lots of different ways to post scores and to get it done easily. We'd ask that when you're running your events as well, that you make every effort possible to get those scores posted by the end of the day. And again, just like before, using the USGA Tournament Manager or Golf Genius software, you can post all those scores with a click of a button once they're entered in the system. So a real easy way to do that. All right, we're going to keep on rolling here in terms of the presentation. So now we'll talk about the handicap formula. We got a video that kind of walks through some of the components of the formula here.
Every golfer is different. Every golf course is different. Every day is different. The aim of the World Handicap System is to take all these differences and produce a single measure of a player's golfing ability. A handicap index reflecting the score a player can achieve when playing well. To do that, it must start with a handicap calculation which balances responsiveness and stability, consistency and flexibility. At the core of the handicap calculation is your score, demonstrating how well you played your round relative to the course's difficulty, as determined by its course rating and slope rating, and any conditions that might have made the course harder or easier to play on the day. A record of your scores is maintained, and your handicap index is based on an average of the best 8 of your last 20 scores. Because your worst scores are discarded, your handicap index reflects the score you're likely to achieve on your better days. The more scores you can submit, the more accurately your handicap index will reflect your golfing ability. While any player can have a bad day or a run of poor form, form is temporary. That's why the handicap calculation does more than just look at your most recent best scores. It retains a memory of your lowest handicap index during the past 12 months and provides mechanisms to ensure bad days don't cause your current handicap index to increase too quickly from that low index. Under normal circumstances, your handicap index should never increase more than 5 strokes above your low handicap index over a rolling 12-month period. Players have great days too. Juniors and beginners in particular can improve dramatically over a short period of time. The handicap calculation can identify this, applying additional reductions to a handicap index when a player achieves a score of 7 strokes or more below their current handicap index. A calculation won't always detect a real change in a player's ability. For that reason, each golf club's handicap committee has the tools and can adjust a player's handicap index to better reflect their current ability. All these elements come together as your handicap index is revised promptly, ready for the next day or soon after. The World Handicap System delivers a handicap index to all players that is calculated in a consistent way across the globe. It allows players everywhere to continue to enjoy the game they love, wherever they play and whoever they're playing with or against.
All right, so you can see not that complicated at all. Just kidding, but there are definitely a lot of things that go into the new formula. But as you'll find out, the majority of these are all automatic and happen behind the scenes, and you won't need to learn how this happens or what the actual formulas are, with the exception of the quiz. After you learn it for the quiz, you can forget it until there's, whenever the next quiz that the USGA is going to require us to do. But most of this stuff happens behind the scenes, and you don't need to actually know it, except for just a few of the formulas that you'll see on the quiz. So there are 5 major changes or significant changes to the calculation for 2020. Now, we talked about some of these already, but they'll only be required 3 18-hole scores or 54 holes to get started. We're going to use 8 of the last 20 score differentials as opposed to 10 out of the 20, but we did get rid of the bonus for excellence, or the multiplier that we used for 10 of 20, which was 0.96 times our average 10 of 20. So with that being done and using a few less differentials, it kind of reduces the amount of change there. But there definitely is a change, and it will definitely impact certain golfers more than others based on their score patterns. Well, we also have a playing conditions calculation, which we'll talk about again, and that's if there's any abnormal course setup or weather conditions that cause the course to play differently that day. And again, this is, just makes a lot of sense too if you think about it. A score played in the first week of April in Michigan and one played in the middle of August are, if I shot 80 on both days, it's completely different round because of the way that the course plays or the way that the weather might be. And so those are just, even though they're the same score, I played significantly better on that first day, given that the ball's not rolling as far, that it was probably cold out, as opposed to April where it was, August where it was sunny and the ball was rolling normal. There is now an exceptional score reduction that will look at all scores, as opposed to just a tournament score reduction, that was listed under some people's handicaps is now going to be applied. That this reduction will be applied to all scores. And we also have this concept of a soft and hard cap, which will limit the upward movement of the handicap index. We can go down as quickly as much as the system says, but the upward movement will be suppressed. And this is again to help safeguard people's handicaps index from going up too quickly. And the other thing too about all these different changes is that all these components have been used in other parts of the world. We're just combining the best features of all the systems into one here. So none of these are just brand new and haven't been tested. They've all been tested and used in other parts of the world. So this chart here will be on the quiz, on the test. You'll see that this just lays out, based on how many scores are in the record, how many of the differentials are used in the calculation of the handicap index. So you can see if you only have 3 scores, we're going to use our lowest score differential, but we're also going to adjust it down too. And you'll see that there are other adjustments based on certain scores, but once we get to at least 7 scores, then we're not going to have any of that adjustment column. And we'll look at, just like before, look at the last 20. So if you ever have a new golfer that's starting, we always recommend that they can remember, post their last 20 scores. And that's all the system will look at in a given snapshot. All right, this score differential here, how it's calculated, again, I'm sorry, you are going to need to know this formula, and you can reference it in the book or online, and this presentation will also be available while you're taking the quiz, but you do need to know this formula. So again, it's when you're looking at this too, you'll see this / here, that's just to divide. And then this adjusted gross score here is our score adjusted for net double bogey or double bogey plus. And then our PCC adjustment is the adjustment for the playing conditions calculation, which is a integer value, which we'll talk about. The other thing to keep in mind when you're doing the formulas for the quiz is to keep in mind that that thing that your math teacher told you when you were in grade school, that please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or you do in the order of operations, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So do all your stuff in the parentheses first, and then times it. Don't do one or the other, just parentheses first. Keep that in mind. I've seen a lot of people get questions wrong because they're not doing that. And again, you need to know this formula to pass the quiz. After that, you can forget it. So a score differential, the way it's calculated, like as we saw previously, we're using the slope rating and the course rating of the tee that we're playing. So just like this example shows, our lowest score differential is our highest score that's on there, and that's just because of the higher course rating and the higher slope rating here that calculates it. So a 97 is not the same at every golf course. I think we all know that as golfers, or understand that as golfers. This just shows that even though the score may be higher, the differential could be lower. All right, and then again, we're using our 8 out of our lowest 8 out of our most recent 20, and we're going to round. We're going to take the average of that and round it to the nearest 10th. So here's just a sample looking at golfer's record. So when under the old system of the USGA handicap system, this golfer's handicap index was a 12.9, or the new system, they're a 13.3. And you'll see that in this case here, the golfer's handicap index went up. In other cases, like for mine example, mine went down 0.4 or 0.5, I forget, but it did go down. Everyone's handicap was recalculated on January 6th. So if they had a handicap index last year and were active as of January 6th, they got this new number calculated for them. So they've seen this before, but they might not have actually seen it, quote unquote, seen it, because they haven't been playing golf. But this number has been calculated for them, and you'll probably get questions when people start playing of why it changed, and that's just because it's a brand new, or it's a different formula, and therefore the number would change even if they didn't hit a shot or post a score. It could change. And again, the amount that it changes is really just going to depend on that golfer's scoring record. For a more consistent golfer, they're going to see very little change. But for an inconsistent golfer like myself, that they'll see more of a change, and probably more of a negative change, because the way that it's calculated does favor a golfer that's more consistent, kind of just like the old system did with the bonus for excellence multiplier as well. All right, playing conditions calculation. So this is going to be on the quiz. And again, this is when adverse weather conditions or abnormal course setup causes scores to be unusually high or low on a given day, and a playing conditions calculation will adjust to reflect the player's actual performance. The PCC, or playing conditions calculation, is simple and conservative in nature and will be adjusted integer values. So the range is -1 to +3. So it's intentional that there's more room on the plus side, because if you think about this, more times than not, the course is going to play harder than normal because of conditions. So it could be weather, but it could also be the fact that it's a tournament and everyone plays, or most golfers play worse than a tournament. So that day, the pressure of the day could also impact the playing conditions calculation. People ask, well, why could it be negative, or how could it be negative? Well, if you've ever played on a resort course on a weekend, the tees are very rarely in the spot that they're supposed to be. They're usually up at the very front of the tee box where they're supposed to be to help pace of play go quicker. So that could be a course setup issue that would make the course play easier. You could have just a really, really nice day, or a certain golf course setup where it's downwind on the majority of the holes that day. And you could also have that the course superintendent could put the hole in the middle of every green on a certain day. It could make play easier that day. The key with this playing conditions calculation is that this is automatic, and there's nothing that the course or anyone needs to do to put in information. All it's looking at is just looking at scores, and it's looking at how they vary based on what is expected based on your handicap index. So it's just looking at if we have 50 people that play that day and everyone is 3 or 4 strokes higher than what they should be based on their handicap, then we're going to have an adjustment there. But if on average there's no difference in golfer scores, then there won't be adjustment that day. So it's not going to happen every day. There could be an adjustment, but it happens automatically. It's computer algorithm. So there's nothing that the course needs to do. The only thing that the golfer needs to do is to make sure that the score is actually posted on the day they play. Okay, so it happens once per day. And it's going to happen just at the same time. It's going to happen overnight when the handicap's calculated. And it's going to look at any acceptable scores that were submitted, including all rated tees in both genders, but you need to have at least eight acceptable scores, and it only includes golfers with a handicap index of 36 or less. So it's not going to be, affected by a bunch of higher handicappers that might be playing that specific day or have, a wider range of particular scores. So we're looking at a handicap index of 36 or less, and at least 8 scores in order for it to be applied. And again, just like we talked about before with this, we want people to post on the day they play, because that score will get included in a potential PCC or playing conditions calculation, and that could, that score or those 10 scores that get posted that day, could trigger a adjustment, or it could not. It could be the difference in not triggering an adjustment as well. So it's important that they post the day that they play, and then there'll be a column in the golfer's scoring record that will indicate if PCC was applied, and I'll show you that at the end once we get to the score posting part of this. So I think, again, key is that it happens automatically. It's a computer algorithm. Common question we get is, well, how do you what triggers a -1 to a +1 to a +2 +3? We actually don't know the formula for this playing conditions calculation. It's proprietary, and the USGA is not sharing it with us, and that's perfectly fine, as their time and resource that they put into developing this system. So they have every right to protect their intellectual property just like any other business does. So we don't know how it's calculated, so don't ask us, because we won't have an answer for you. And then for those people that have been calculating quote unquote USGA handicaps on their spreadsheets at home are no longer going to be able to do it because they cannot figure this out, because it requires to know all scores that are posted on a course on a given day, which even if they had that information, they'd have to back test it to figure it out, and it's just going to be impractical to include this in a what I call a home gamer calculation for handicaps. All right, next is the exceptional score reduction. So again, this is going to take the place of the tournament score reduction. So key is that this applies to all scores. And now when we go and we post scores, the importance of posting or marking a score, a tournament score, is not important anymore. We'll still be able to track it. We're actually changing it to be called the competition score, and it'll be listed with a C in a scoring record. If you're familiar with the scoring records and how it looks, the C used to be for the combined 9-hole score. That's going to be changed to an N score, or a 9-hole for N score. But so now that we have, it's going to apply to all scores. And what it is going to look at if the score was exceptional, if it was 7.0 to 9.9 strokes, or difference in the score differential relative to their handicap index. If it's in that range, we're going to adjust it -1. We're going to adjust all of the last 20 scores with that. If it was 10.0 or it was 10.0 or higher, then the score differential was 10.0 or higher from their handicap index, and we're going to subtract 2. And the way that it is it's going to hit the last 20 scores. So, and in addition to that, we're also, just as it says here, this is in addition to any reduction caused by the score being used in the updated 8 of 20 calculation. So we're going to reduce that, and then also a further reduction to lower the handicap index. And the nice thing about this is that you'll see here in this example is that we can now, anytime that there is that exceptional score, it's going to subtract 1 from the last 20 scores, and it will work its way out naturally, as opposed to being stuck in there for a year like it was under the old system with the tournament score reduction. The other nice thing about this, in terms of golfers here in Michigan, is that we had a lot of golfers that would quote unquote back into a tournament score reduction because they would peak in August after playing for 3 or 4 months in a row. They'd shoot a really good score in the club championship, and then they'd take a couple, they play through the end of the season, keep their form. They'd take a few weeks or a month or so off, go down to Florida, Arizona, play a couple times there, hit it in every, down in Florida, hit in every pond and lake down there, shoot really high scores. Their handicap index would pop up, and then all of a sudden this tournament score reduction would kick in, because that's the way the system worked, is it just looked at the tournament score and it became exceptional after the fact because their handicap index went up. So no longer will anyone back into this reduction. It's just going to happen, and it will work its way out naturally when it happens as well. So I think this is a great change for us. In terms of some concerns that people have expressed, well, under the old system, it was if they had 2 or more tournament scores that had a difference of only 3, whereas now we're up to 7. So it is a little bit wider range, but this is something that the USGA and RNA will look at and evaluate on a yearly basis to see if that range is maybe a little too generous. All right, this concept of a low handicap index here, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but again, this concept is on the exam. So the low handicap index represents the demonstrated ability of a player over the 365-day or 1-year period preceding the most recent score in the player's scoring record. And again, this is to help with some of these caps that we'll talk about in a second. And the key takeaway for this is that in order for a golfer to have a low handicap index, they need to have at least 20 scores in their record. Chances are that most golfers have this already. And this low handicap index started as of January 6th, when the handicap index were recalculated. So when we're looking at a low handicap index, we're not going to look, even though today it's March 24th or whatever day it is. I might look back 365 days, but I'm only looking at my handicap index calculated with the World Handicap System for my low handicap index. So it started as of January 6th. Going forward in 2021, we'll have be able to look back at a full year's worth of low handicap indexes when we're evaluating this. This part right here is not really important. It's not on the quiz, and you don't have to worry about this. So this is another thing, that this low handicap and these caps, that they happen automatically, and so you won't need to know how this works, except unfortunately for the exam or for the quiz. So we have here a couple things that will limit the upward movement of the handicaps. Again, there's no limit to the amount that the handicap index can decrease, but we have two caps, hard cap and a soft cap, that are going to limit the upward movement. And kind of key thing is that your handicap index should never increase more than 5 strokes above your low handicap index over a rolling 12-month period. So the soft cap and hard cap, again, this happens automatically, but you'll have to learn the soft cap procedure for the quiz. But we are limited the upward movement of the golfer's handicap index within a 12-month period. The soft cap will suppress upward movement by 50% after a 3.0 stroke increase over the low handicap index has been reached. The hard cap will restrict the upward movement to 5 strokes over the low handicap index. And again, the soft cap and hard cap procedures only start to take effect once a player has at least 20 acceptable scores in their scoring record. All right, so this soft cap example is going to be on the quiz. So we'll go through this one. Again, this presentation is available for you to view, so you can reference it. But we're going to have here, where we have our golfer starts with the handicap index, has a low handicap index of 10.0. Using their 8 of 20 normal calculation, it will come out to 15.2. So our first step is we need to subtract how much more that is in the low handicap index. So it's 5.2, and then we're going to find out how much more that 5.2 is, how much greater than 3 it is. So our soft cap determines greater than 3. So it's 2.2 greater than 3, and we're going to subtract 50% of that remaining or resulting value from our 8 of 20. So 50% of 2.2 is 1.1. And we're going to take 1.1 minus 15.2, which was how it would be calculated without the cap, to get 14.1. Okay, so the key here is that we're trying to find how much greater the difference is than 3, and we take half of that, and then we subtract it from the 8 of 20 calculation. All right, so this hard cap is not on the exam, but within the hard cap is a soft cap. So we'll show you that again so that you understand, or see it one more time. So in this case here, we have a golfer's low handicap index of 10.0. But if they did their 8 of 20 normal calculation, it would be 17.4. So first we need to find the difference and how much of that difference is over 3 for the soft cap. So we have 7.4 is the difference. It's 4.4 more than 3. So we take half of that, which is 2.2. In this case here, if we took 2.2 from 17.4, it would give us 15.2. But now our hard cap is kicking in because we can only go 5. It's capped at 5 from our low handicap index, which is 10. So the highest it could be would be 15.0. All right, so I know that's confusing. The key, just keep in mind, the soft cap is the one you need to know. All this stuff happens automatically. You don't need to know it after the quiz, but the soft cap is the one you need to know for the quiz. Talked about this before, but the handicaps are going to be, handicap indexes are going to be updating daily at midnight Eastern Standard Time. And it's important that golfers post their scores on time. Again, we know it's going to be a new habit that's going to be formed, or going to have to be formed, but anything that you can do to help promote that scores being posted on a daily basis would be appreciated. All right, stroke index and par. So that stroke index allocation, again, is the new term for handicap holes. And we'll also talk about par and how these things are more important now because of the net double bogey application, as well as the course handicap calculation for par. So this under the rules of handicapping, the World Handicap System, the USGA and the GAM is recommending that we use course rating data to rank the holes for the stroke index allocation. Okay, and by default, it's going to come out to odds on the front and evens on the back, but that can be switched. And the way that this is done is it's basically a cluster or a triad format where we're looking at grouping them in three, holes or groups of three. We want to spread out the holes, the stroke index allocation holes, evenly across, but we also want to make sure that they get that they come into play. So you might have, for example, the number one, the quote unquote number one stroke index hole could be number 18, but do we really want it to fall in 18? Because if we're playing a match, our match might never get to 18 when I need that stroke, because you might finish me off before we get there. So we want to try to get the number one and number two stroke index hole in the middle triad here, or 4, 5, and 6, or 13, 14, and 15. And if it doesn't fit in there, it will sit just on the edge, 3 or 7 or 12 or 16, if the numbers dictate it. This is, and I guess just the key is this is a recommendation. This is not something that you have to use, but this is something that we'll provide as part of our course rating service to golf courses in Michigan now. We'll send it over to you if you haven't got it already. And at that point, you can tell us what you want to use, if you want to change, or you want to use what's on your scorecard. It's really up to you. This is a recommendation. How to do it. A lot of times, if you haven't done this process or went through this process in 10, 20 years, we definitely recommend using the recommendation. It's going to be much more accurate than probably what you have on the card. The other thing too, just taking a step back, is the stroke index allocation is commonly misunderstood to be the understand how the quote unquote difficult hole, and it's not hole difficulty. We're trying to figure out where the higher handicap golfer needs help against the lower handicap golfer. So it has nothing to do with how difficult the hole is, which most people think it is, but it's just where the bogey golfer needs help against the scratch golfer, or the higher handicap needs help against the lower handicap. And that's why we're recommending using the course rating data, is because that's how we evaluate and come up with that number, by looking at the differences between those two golfers, as opposed to difficulty relative to par. That's not really what we're after here. We're trying to find out where the golfer actually needs it. And this process is, here are some of the components of it, but it's laid out in Appendix E of the rules of handicapping as well. Again, this is something that we'll provide to you. We can run it for as many tees as you'd like, but we're going to base it. The recommendation would be to have one set for each gender, men and women, and we're going to base it off of the tee that had the most scores posted in 2019 when we're calculating this number and sending it over to you. Again, complete recommendation. but we do need to have something finalized in the system as soon as possible so we can have that ready when golfers start posting scores in Michigan. If it's something that you want to change midway through the season, this can be changed at any point in time. So you just need to let us know, and we can change on our end. But we do need to have something in the system to allow golfers to post hole by hole and be able to properly apply that double bogey. Par, likewise with par, is now more important because it's used in the course handicap calculation. You probably read some pieces about how par, including par, is going to ruin the handicap calculation. Actually, your par is not used in the handicap index calculation at all. So it's not, excuse me, it's not part of the actual handicap index calculation. It is part of the course handicap calculation, but not your handicap index. So it's commonly misunderstood. But basically, there are these set guidelines that the USGA put out, and then in December they came to us and said that we're going to have a lot more flexibility than what these guidelines are. So really, don't read too much into these numbers here. This is more what the par is going to be based off of for the back tee or the longest tee. And then as we move forward, we understand that, for example, if you look at a 440-yard hole doesn't necessarily fall into a par 5 for men, but for many senior golfers, a 440-yard hole is a par 5. And so really what we want to do is, see in here, this red, is that we want par to match what is on your scorecard. And ideally the par would be the same for each tee for each gender. Some courses have different pars for different genders, but we want to match par that's listed on your scorecard to make it as simple for golfers to understand. And then again, when we have a single par, it makes the course handicap calculation easier, and there's no adjustments that need to get made. So if we have a single par, again, that plane handicap doesn't need to be adjusted. So you just take your course handicap that's on your app or on the sheet that you print out, and you go and you go play. You don't need to do adjustment for different tees. You just go play. And a single par is relatable to golfers and probably already printed on your scorecard. Whereas, if you were to look at the way that it was based off of that chart, it would result in a golf course. And I always use Meadowbrook in Northville as an example. They have 16 different tees between all the hybrids that they have there between men and women. And when you run the numbers, there's 9 different pars based on that chart. But the scorecard only has 1 par, and that's what we want in our system. But again, that's something that we need to confirm in our system. We're working through to get those updated. But if you see that it's not correct, when someone goes to post a score, you look and see and the par is not listed right, let us know. We'll get that changed and corrected. The one downside to a single par, and this really is not super, is just that if you have, it is going to lower that course handicap for golfers that play tees that have a lower course rating than par. And so there's going to be that initial shock as, well, I used to get 12 strokes, now I only get 7. What the hell is going on? And maybe they don't trust the world handicap system. But again, it's all equitable, as we talked about before. And here's just a chart to kind of throw it out and see. In your top one, you've got your different pars. In your bottom one, you have the same pars for every tee. And if we actually go out and do the calculation, so if we're playing a match between the black and silver golfer, we would get 20 here, and then we'd add we'd look at, so we get 20 strokes here, and then for this silver, that's not a great example because the par is the same. Let's say we go from 70, or black and green, so we get 20 strokes here as a black tee golfer, 13 strokes as a green tee golfer. But because there's a difference in par, if they were playing a match, we would actually give the golfer playing the black tee 2 more strokes. There'd be a difference of 9 strokes there. So essentially 22 minus 13, 9. But if we have a single par, we go down and we look at the course handicap that's calculated already for us. We have that 9 difference, 20 and 11 built in already, and we just go out and play. So there's really no impact. It just makes things a lot easier with that single par. All right, and then in terms of if you do have if you need a temporary rating for an unrated set of tees, so this really applies more to like the tournaments that like the GAM runs, or maybe you have an event where you're having a tournament and you're picking between a bunch of different tees that don't have an actual rating. There is a way to adjust for this. This is just temporary. So if this is a permanent modification or a permanent tee that's out there, then we need to know about that so we can get an actual course rating and slope rating calculated. But there's a chart listed in the appendix of the rules of handicapping, and basically the only difference from previously is that if the difference is under 100 yards, then you don't need to adjust. You just pick the closest tee and post as usual. But if there's a difference between 100 and 300 yards, there's a table value that can be used to adjust it. Again, this is primarily used for organizations running tournaments and using using a set of tees that are not listed on the scorecard. If you do have a permanent modification to your golf course, we definitely want to know that. So contact us and let us know so we can get that updated and changed. In a lot of cases, we don't need to come out to the golf course to do that. We can use numbers that we have to get that information, but there are some cases where we would need to actually send a human out there to rate the golf course, and we'll work with you on that. So at the end of the day, we want golfers to post scores from tees that have proper ratings, and we want to make sure that any changes that you have are being reflected in the course and slope ratings. All right. Some responsibilities of the club handicap committee. So the club handicap committee recommend that all courses have a handicap committee, and it can be a mix of people, employees of the club, members or golfers that play, or people that run leagues. Anyone can be involved in the handicap committee. We just ask that the chair of the handicap committee not be a person that's employed by the course, to avoid any conflict of interest that might come up there. But every year it's recommended that the handicap committee conduct a handicap review, or what I like to call a sandbagger review, for any golfers that might be playing to their handicap more frequently than what should be expected. There are a bunch of tools that you can use to evaluate. They can look at how many times a golfer had an exceptional score in their record. You can look at events to see if this golfer magically plays better in tournaments all the time. Those are things that you can do to run a review. The other side of a review is that you might have a golfer request a review because they're not playing to their ability, because maybe they just had surgery and they just can't hit the ball the way they used to. So that might be a situation where you'd actually adjust a golfer's handicap index upward because of that. When you are looking at a golfer and reviewing a golfer, and you do make an adjustment to their handicap index, you do need to tell the golfer that. So we can't make any changes without letting the golfer know, because part of this review process is for the golfer to also request or to be able to appeal the decision to the handicap committee. So here are some things that you can look at in terms of reviewing it. Again, not super important for the quiz, but something to keep in mind that you do have the option to do. So in order for a handicap committee or a golf course to have the ability to modify a golfer's handicap index, or look at their information, their full information, they need to be listed as a member of that club, and they need to be marked as a home club. So if you have a golfer that is a member at a club in Florida and Michigan, when they come back to Michigan, you want to make sure that their Michigan club is checked as their home club. There's a report that you can run that will show golfer's home club, and you can change that come the summertime if you do have a lot of golfers that play elsewhere or that belong to clubs elsewhere. But again, this having that marked as a home club will give you the authority to oversee that golfer's handicap index at your course. So a lot of courses recommend that if a member is going to be playing in events, that their course, if they have a handicap there, because what you don't want is you don't want to have an issue with someone's handicap index and not be able to do anything because you have to call down to Florida to their club in Florida to get it adjusted because they're not listed at your club. So that's our recommendation to do that. So you have control over the golfers and how they're, what they're doing at your golf course. If you do need to adjust the golfer's handicap index, there are a couple ways that you can do it, but when you do it, it needs to be a minimum of 1 full stroke. And except in exceptional circumstances, you only want it to increase by up to 5 strokes from their low handicap index. There's no limit downward as far as we can go, just like kind of with the caps, the same procedure there. But again, this is something that if you do adjust a golfer's handicap index, it could be because of injury. It could be because they're cheating or they're purposely, manipulating their handicap index. There's lots of different ways that that this could come up. If you are gonna do it, we'd be happy to help you with any of these situations, and help make it a little bit easier, or maybe not as personal to a golfer. If we can help, we'd be happy to do that. And again, there's a couple ways that you can do this. You can just freeze the golfer's handicap index. So you can say, okay, let's just use it a reduced example. We're going to reduce it by 2.0 for the next 6 months. Or probably the best way to do it is to reset the golfer's last 20 scores and reduce the score differentials by the amount that you want to change it. So if you want to lower their handicap index by 2, there'd be a way to just go in there and say, I want to adjust the last 20 score differentials, and it would do that automatically. So, and especially if you're if you're talking about injury, that's really the best way to do that, because then you have their current scores with their injury taken in consideration, work their way in, and eventually get calculated. So that's definitely the best way to do it when you have that injury situation, is to hit the last 20 score differentials. And this is all built in the system that you can do through the admin portal. You can also apply a penalty score to a golfer's record if they fail to submit a score that should be posted. A lot of times you'll ask that golfer, why didn't you post your score? And if they can find out what the score is, then they can go ahead and post it. But if there was no valid reason why they didn't post it, but you do find the score, go ahead and post it. If their score is not discoverable, then you can apply a penalty score. And what that is that you would just select the lowest score differential in the record, and the system would post it automatically. And in some cases, I mean, that's one option. But you could also apply a lower score too if you wanted to, because you know, want to make sure that they learn their lesson, and maybe they shot 69, but their lowest score differential is, you know, based off a score of 72, and so it would be more penal to post the actual score. So if you have the score and you know it, you can post it, but you can also use the threat of a penalty score as well. And this is it's all built in the system, so you just go in there, you say you want to post a score, a penalty score, and it will automatically pick that lowest score differential there. If we do get into the situation where we need to withdraw a golfer's handicap because they're just, you know, cheating, or they, for whatever reason, they just aren't playing to their handicap index. I mean, this is used more for the scenario where a golfer is seriously manipulating their handicap index and causing issues at the course. You can withdraw a handicap index. We'd ask that before you do that, talk to us, so we can help you out with that. And then we can also talk through the process of getting it reinstated, if conditions are met, how that gets reinstated, but also make sure on our end that they just don't open up another one at a, you know, public golf course or another golf course, and just start the whole process again. So work with us on that. Hopefully that this never comes up, because it shouldn't come up too much. You know, maybe once in every couple of years. But there are options to help with those sandbaggers that are out there, and anything, again, like I said, that we can do to help with these situations, please let us know. All right, almost done here with the first part, or with the World Handicap System part. A lot of the resources that we have, will show you our website that has all those out, but all videos, infographics, posters, articles are all available on the GAM website, and we'll show you where that is. There's also the Rules of Handicapping book, and some other publications that are available to purchase. So if you're interested in purchasing the handicap materials, you can do that directly through the USGApublications.com. Again, those are those Rules of Handicapping books, some posters. If you're interested in purchasing any of those, again, USGApublications.com. All right. Next thing I want to do is show you a few things on our website. I want to show you our website and a few resources for the exam and how that process works. So on our website, GAM.org, under the handicapping tab, there is a World Handicap site, and this WHS resource hub will list out all the handicap resources that we have. So there are a bunch of videos on here that you can view, or that you can take and share. Within these, there's also summaries of the changes, talks about what it was under the old system, what it's under the new system, PDF posters, some of those graphics, these kind of cartoonish graphics. You can get the PDF and print that out if you'd like and post at the club. There's a lot of great resources here. And again, available on the GAM website, gam.org, and then handicapping, World Handicap System, and then WHS Resource Hub. The other thing too is this we have the full Rules of Handicapping PDF here that you can view. And then for the quiz today and for this presentation, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom, and there are a bunch of resources here. We have the presentation that we went through today that's on here. We also have the link to the quiz that you can select, and that's how you're going to actually access the quiz, is through this page. So again, it's gam.org, handicapping, World Handicap System, WHS Resource Hub, and then scroll down all the way to the bottom. And then to click that link, it's going to take you to the quiz. When you do take the quiz, you are going to need to know your club number. If you don't know your club number, please contact us at handicap@gam.org and we'll get that to you. Okay, so once you get the quiz, a couple things on the quiz, we'll click it here so you can see it. But it's the quiz is open book, so you can use any materials that you want for your exam. These presentations, this video, videos on our website, any resources that you want. You do need to get 80% to satisfy the requirements. So that's 16 out of 20. There's 20 questions. The other thing too is that when you do take it and you get the questions wrong, it's going to tell you which ones you got wrong, and you can retake it. So if you can't get 100% on the second time you take it, then we got bigger problems to worry about. So it's really simple. You can go in there, take the quiz. It will give you your results right away. If you passed, you're great. If you didn't pass, it will tell you which questions you got wrong. Take those down, write those down, make sure you remember, and then go retake the quiz again, and then you'll pass and be good to go. Okay, and then again, if you don't know your club ID number, please contact us so we can get that correct for you. But that's the quiz. Again, you can access it from our website, gam.org, handicapping WHS resource hub, and then all the way at the bottom is the certification link. And again, just a reminder that one person from each course or club needs to pass in order to be able to offer USGA handicap indexes to your course or to golfers at your course or in your club. All right, so we're going to keep going in the presentation to cover the upgraded GHIN system, GHIN platform for handicapping reports, and also your roster maintenance reports under GAM Club Admin. If you want to take the quiz right now and come back and reference the rest of the video later, go for it. But we're going to cover this as well. So with the upgraded GHIN products, your golfers are going to see this as well. So in terms of what it looks like for the golfer, we'll start with how score posting will work on a computer. So we don't have the ability to show you what it's going to look like on a phone, but we do have to show you under handicapping and score posting guide. We have some great resources for how-to videos on how to download and use the GHIN mobile app on your iPhone or Android. We also have some videos that walk through this process of posting the score on a desktop or a laptop. This is a great resource to share with people if they're not familiar how to post scores. We send it out in every handicap revision update that we send out on the 1st and 15th of the month as well. But for a golfer on a website, it's pretty simple. They'll go to gam.org, and in the top right corner, there's a post score button. There's also available here as well under handicapping. They click post score, and it's going to take them to the GHIN site where they'll log in with their GHIN number and their last name. So if they don't know their last name, then again, we have some issues. But if they don't know their GHIN number, you can give that to them, or if they get the handicap emails that we send out in the 1st and the 15th of the month, that's listed right underneath their name in the top left corner on those. And it's also available if they log into their GAM profile on the GAM website as well. So once they type in their GHIN number and their last name, they'll get taken to their page where they'll see their handicap index, their low handicap index, and then recent scores listed out down here. In terms of posting a score, quick way is this post score button here. You can also see that we can click up top here. When we do go to post a score, we'll have the option, default will be to post total score, but we can also post hole by hole. So if we post a total score, we can either select a course from our recently played, or we can search for a golf course here. Okay, so if I search for a golf course here, it will default to all courses, but if I want to filter it by certain states, I can do that after I search. So I'll select the course, and then I'll select how many holes, select the tee I played. And then I'll select my score, the date, today, and hit post score. And then it'll give me a message that my score has been posted. If I want to post a hole by hole score, I can click this. And the other nice thing too is that now with my with the new system, I can post hole by hole and also keep track of stats. So same process before I do hole by hole, I'll select the tee I would play. You can see here that par is shown here, which is why par is important. And then when I go to post hole by hole, I will hit enter hole by hole score here. And then it will list out the par and the stroke index or the handicap holes. And that's another reason why we need this to be in the system. If I post my scores, if I post a big number here, you can see that it gets adjusted down based on net double bogey automatically. So I don't need to figure out how that works. And then it will go to the back nine. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but if I also wanted to keep track of stats, I can click this button here, and now I'll be able to track putts, greens, and my driving accuracy, whether I missed long, left, right, short, or I hit the fairway. So those are all options that you can do if the golfer wants to. The other nice thing when they do post their stats, the system will give them a graphic view of what that round was. So you can see here, this is a round where I put in the stats, and it will give me an average of how I did in certain pars and accuracy, putts, things like that. Even if I just put in hole by hole, it will give me this on the right here, or on the left, excuse me, how I did on certain par fours and par fives. So some cool information that people can have if they want. The other thing too, when you're looking at the score history, which you can access under the stats button here, you'll see there's this column for PCC, or the playing conditions calculation. So any score that would have got that would have a number there. This golfer doesn't have any. And you'll also see that the score type here, this N, we talked about this as N is the new term for 9 holes that are combined. And we might have, we don't have any competition scores in here. But if we had a competition score, it would be marked as with a C. And we still have the A and H for home and away. In terms of looking up golfers' course handicap, that's the course handicap calculator. And you can, again, select your recent tee. And then you'll select the tee you played, and it will give you the course handicap for that tee. If you want to add, so maybe you play with a group of people all the time, you can add people. So anyone that you follow, which will show you how to do in a second, I can add. And then anyone that's my gender will get defaulted to the same tee, but I can pick the tees for the golfers that I'm playing with, and it will calculate our course handicaps here. And if we wanted to change golf course to do 9 holes, we can do it there. If I want to follow golfers or get my list of following, I can go to golfer lookup, and here is where I star all my people. If I want to unfollow golfers, so maybe I don't want to follow him or don't want him to be in my group, I'll just unstar him here, and it will take him off my list. I can search for golfers within my club. So here are my GAM office club that we have. I can pick any golfer and add them in there. And then they'll show up in my list. But I could also look for golfers outside of my club in state or in other states. and add them to my list as well. And then lastly, the handicap history is available. So anytime now that I post a score, I'll have a revision on the following day. So you'll see that it's only going to show up when the score was posted, and it will also show up even if the handicap index wasn't changed. So in some cases, you will post a score and it's just going to get thrown out because it won't be one of the ones that counts, but it's still going to show that a handicap was updated because a score was posted. So this setup is very similar to the setup on the mobile app. Obviously it looks a little bit differently, but in terms of the features that are available, all the same on the app. The app, definitely highly recommend looking at that. It's a pretty cool option for golfers to post their score. All right, next we'll look at the score posting kiosk for club. So this is a new upgraded kiosk. If you have your old one, you'll need to just change the link. I'll show you where the link is in a little bit when we get into the admin portal. But the link you'll just swap out, and this is what it will look like. It'll have the Golf Association of Michigan, the USGA, and then the name of your club right here in the center. And then you'll be able to look up golfers by searching for their last name. The one thing that has changed is because of the USGA privacy laws and rules, you need to type out the full name of the golfer. We've asked them to relax this, but as of right now, they have not. So in this case here, we only have one golfer with the last name Graham. So he came up, and then I can post a score, post hole by hole, view my handicap information, which include my course handicap from my tees or my recent scores. And you can see here that this PCC adjustment, we had a couple kick in this golfer's record here. And then if I go back here to the home, I can look up other golfers if I need to. But posting score, we won't go through this, but it's pretty simple. The default course will come here. I can select the different score type or search for a different course by clicking here. Select my tee, the date I played. Michigan, since we can't post now, I'll switch it back. Total score, type it in there, and then hit post score, and it will give me a message. So pretty straightforward in terms of the setup. Very similar lookup again. The other thing too, in terms of the privacy settings for the golfer, you'll see when you look up a golfer's score record, there won't be full information listed here, and that's because this is a public access in terms of there's not a required login with a GHIN number and last name. So you'll see that the date of the golfer when they play, it just has the month. It doesn't have the necessary or the actual date that they play, just the month and the year, and it doesn't give the name of the course, but gives the course rating and slope rating. But if I'm on my app or on the website and I'm logged in and this golfer is a member of my club, I'll be able to see it. And likewise, as an administrator, you'll be able to see the full information for the golfer. But individual golfers won't be able to see specific information. And fortunately, that's because of the privacy, new privacy policy. But basically what happened is that, certain people said they were in business meetings when they were actually out on the golf course, and lo and behold, someone could prove that by looking at their record. So they restricted that so that those types of things wouldn't happen. And it's unfortunate, but just the way that it is. So again, that's the kiosk, pretty straightforward in terms of how to use. And if we need to exit out to the home page, it will automatically time back to this home page if the golfer leaves their record up. But that's the new kiosk, and we'll show you a little bit how to access that. All right, next we're going to cover just really quickly the difference between the GAM Club Admin Portal and the GHIN Club Admin Portal. So the GAM Club Admin Portal is where you'll do all your roster maintenance. So just like before, you'll check your people that are active versus inactive, add new golfers, do all that in the GAM admin portal, club admin portal. And then for your handicap reports, your editing of scores, those types of handicap related activities you'll do in the GHIN club admin portal or GHIN admin portal. So we'll start with the GAM club admin portal. So again, that's the same as it always has been. It's gam.org/club admin. Okay, so once you have that club admin, it will take you to this page. You'll enter in your username and password. If you don't know your username and password, please contact us and we'll get that for you. Once you get in, you'll go to the similar look here where you'll see some information on some help videos, some help resources on the World Handicap System, the GAM Club Admin, GHIN Club Admin help guides. And then you'll also see other information in here, but the primary, the other one you might want to look at is the communications tab, which will list out all the GAM club communication that we've sent out. But the main tab that you'll look at here is your members, where you'll see the ability to add golfers, inactivate golfers, activate golfers, and update their profile information. So once you're in the roster, this will have a list of all your golfers that you can filter by active or inactive by sorting certain buttons here. So if you just want to look at active, you can click that button and we'll pull only the active. But you can search for golfer by their last name, first name, GHIN number, or by the first letter of their last name. So if I want to update a golfer's information, very easy to do that. Just go and find your golfer, click this profile icon here, and then you'll be able to update the golfer's information by clicking this edit button here, or if there's no information, the plus button to add it. So in terms of the information here, some reasons why some of these things are important. Birthday, we want to make sure that that's important, so they're getting the proper messaging. Every year we send out a couple of emails about our junior programs that we offer, and without fail, every year when I send an email out, I get 10 emails back from golfers saying I haven't been a junior in 40 years. That's because when they were entered in the system, they put a fake birth date in that wasn't right. If you don't know the exact birth date when you're adding the golfer in, just update it to get it close. And again, that's just so that they don't get any information that they shouldn't get from us. And then also gender is important because that's going to trigger what tees show up for them to be able to post. Their member login is important for them to be able to log into the GAM website to access their other benefits of their GAM membership beyond their handicap index, so ability to play in our tournaments or GAM golf days that we do, or access some of our discounts from our travel partners that we have. All that information they need to access by logging into their account. Their mailing address, important to have that in there, so when we send out their membership package that they get that. And then the phone number we don't really use except for if they play in our tournaments or our events, so that's not super important. The email address, this is going to get them their handicap updates that they send out, or that we send out on the 1st and the 15th of the month, and then any other emails that we send out. You can see here that they can subscribe to certain different types of emails. So if they don't want to receive emails about our sponsors, then they can edit here and then unsubscribe from that if they want, or unsubscribe from whatever email. And then the golfer can access this by logging into their account as well. All right, so in terms of activating and inactivating golfers, this is the same as it always has been. You'll just click this column here, and then it will give you the option to the opposite. So if you want to activate a golfer, click on the inactive button, and it will give you the prompt to activate them. And likewise, if you want to inactivate a golfer, click this button and it will turn off will give you the prompt to inactivate the golfer. terms of billing, the price and the timing is the same as it always has been. So $24 per golfer, and the billing cutoff date for private clubs is active golfers as of June 1st. You'll get that initial bill, and then later in the season for any golfers that add between June 1st and October, we'll send you another bill. And likewise for the public golf courses, or golf courses that allow online registration for public golfers, but also might add their golfers at their course as well. That roster needs to be cleaned by July 1st, just like before. All right, if we want to add a golfer, we can do that here with this person icon here in the right corner. Once we click that person, we'll be able to either add someone that's currently in the system. If they've had a GHIN number before, we can add them. If we don't know, we can search, or it could just be someone brand new. We won't go through all the process, but if we know they have a GHIN number or we're not sure, it's going to take us to the same page where we'll be able to either type that GHIN number in or search for the golfer. And it could be someone from a different state. And when we search, we'll be able to see where they're from, the golf association, their course or their club, and then their number, and we can add them by clicking use this one here, and that will bring the information over to get into their system so they maintain that record. We can also say just add in a brand new golfer, and we do that. We will go through and add the information here again. If you don't have all this information, you don't need to. You can always edit it later, but again, we just ask that you get as close as possible on this information if you don't have it in front of you. And then if you don't have some of this information here, you can skip it and get to the final page where you'll add them. At that point, once they're added, there'll be a GHIN number generated that you can view in your member roster here by looking at the golfer, and this column here has their GHIN number that's generated for them. So that's how the roster maintenance is done. Very similar to before, similar look, just changed slightly. But if we want to do our handicapping reporting, that is going to look a tad bit differently as upgraded GHIN platform. So if you're familiar with the old way, we could click this button here, or click this GHIN logo or old GHIN logo, and take us to the page and automatically log us in. Now it's actually can take us to the page, but when it does that, it's going to ask us to log in. So you should have got an email, or one club administrator got an email back in January with this information to set up a password. If you didn't get that email, the first thing we would recommend is to go in here and forget your password, type in your email address, and see if the system recognizes you. If it doesn't recognize you, contact us and we'll get you hooked up and set up in the system. But once you have your information, your account, you'll go to this page. It's adminportal.usga.org. Again, adminportal.usga.org. And then once I'm logged in here, it will take me to my roster page where I'll be able to see my roster listed out, golfers' handicap index, their GHIN number, their gender, a few other things listed out here. In terms of the basic navigation, there are a couple things. You'll see that there's some menu buttons up here in the blue that you can get to. You're also, if you're familiar with the USGA Tournament Management or Golf Genius, you'll see that when you do click on a certain page within the system, that wasn't a great example. You click on a certain page in the system, there's this built-in kind of breadcrumb here, where if you ever need to get back to the page, the home page, just click this Manage button, and that will take you back to the home page. But a couple things that you can do in here in terms of navigation, if you want to add people to the account, To give them a login, you can go under your club here. There's a grayed out tab that says account. Click that. And then under manage users, you'll be able to update or add any users that you want to here. It's pretty straightforward. You'll enter your email, name, and phone number information to add them. And the other thing that you can do in here is look and find where the kiosk website, if you didn't get that, it's listed here under account and then home courses and kiosk setup. And again, if you want to set any default teas on that kiosk, you can go in here and edit that here. And then your kiosk link is right down here under kiosk setup, and this link is the one you want to use for the new kiosk. And the last thing that we'll show you is the Tools and Resources tab here. And this is a great place to get help to find out more about the GHIN admin portal. So you can click on these user guides here, and it will show you certain things on how to set up a kiosk. It will literally walk you through how to do that in terms of that being created. There are a ton of different things. If you wanted to find out how to edit, if you click on all these extra articles here, you can see how to do a penalty score, how to put together a rapid score entry. There's all these help guides. If you click on one of them, it will give you an example of kind of what they look like, or it'll walk you through step by step on how to do that thing that you're looking to do. So it's a great resource. Recommend that you use it if you get stuck, but you can always contact us as well. Next big thing in here is the reports, handicap reports. So under the reports tab here, it will default to any reports that you save, but easiest way to do this is just go to the templates reports, and that will give you a big list of reports that you can access, and you can run at any time or schedule. So in terms of the most common report is probably this handicap index course handicap report. It'll allow you to either schedule it or run it. So if you want to run it or view it, hit this view button. Then it'll bring up all these parameters that you're able to select. So we won't go through all of these, but basically you'll see here that you either have the drop-down menu option, or you'll have this gray box. And if you have the gray box, you can pick and choose which items show up. Anything on the right is going to show up in your report. Anything on the left is available that you can move over if you want, or remove. So if you don't want the local number, click on that, click the left arrow, and it will take it out of the report. And then we can select our course. Now we're going to do, this is going to default to your home course. This is just a unique situation because it's a club without a golf course. So I'll pick my course, and then if I have multiple courses at the facility, it will have the option to choose here. And then I can select the gender, and then go down here and pick whatever I want. If I want to sort by how I want to sort, what I want to sort by, I have all these options. I'll hit submit, and then it will run my report. And I'll have all my handicap and course handicaps for the given tees. And then I can export this report or print it. To export it or print, in the top left corner here, this top left one is export. And then I can pick the title, pick the format that I want, Excel, PDF, RTF is a Word, pretty much a Word equivalent, and just hit OK, and then it will process it, and then I can save it or print it. Okay. And then just like before in the old system, if I want to schedule a report, I can do that as well. So if I want to schedule it, I'll just type in the name of the report, pick the same parameters that I want, and then it will give me the option to type the email address of who I want to send it to. So this might be, maybe I run a report every day with the course handicaps for my list of golfers, and I want it to go to a certain email address so it gets printed every morning. Just as an example, I can type that in here, and under the conditions, I can pick, I want to run this task periodically, how often I want to run it, weekly, daily, monthly, what day of the week I want to run it on, or what time I want to run it at, and then hit finish, and then that will get scheduled, and then it will show up and start and get scheduled automatically. And there's a ton of reports in here, so we won't go through all of these or any other ones, but there are a lot of good reports in here to view, to help out with the handicap committee, or just to view information about golfers and their scoring records. All right, the next thing that, well, a few more things that will be done. The golfer, if you need to edit any scores that might have got posted incorrectly, to do that, you'll go into the actual golfer. So you can search for the golfer here, or you can find them listed out in your list. So if I search, or I click my golfer, I'll be able to pull up their record. And from here, if I go to score maintenance, I'll be able to look at the golfer's score and then edit or delete the score as appropriate here. This is not the best one to look at. If I edit this score here, and I just change the T, I can do that pretty easily here and edit it, and then hits edit score once I've made a change. All right, and then the next thing is a rapid score entry. If you use that before, where you're trying to post a bunch of scores for someone really quickly, you can do that just like before. The one thing that they're currently working on is this player entry method. Right now, GHIN number is the only player entry method. We've requested that, as well as I think every golf association that I've talked to in the last 4 months has requested that they put in last name as player entry method. So that is coming. We haven't got a firm timeline on when it will be available, but that is a request that's been put in. But you can set up your report or your rapid score entry screen just how you want it in terms of the course, the tees, etc. And then go in and type those scores just like before. You can do it for many players or set it up for one golfer, however you want to, whatever the easiest way to do that. And the last thing that we'll talk about here is the golfer group setup, or what we used to call print groups. So if you want to put together a group of golfers based on a certain subset, maybe a group of 30 golfers that play every Thursday, we can grab and make a list, and when we're running reports, we'll be able to pick the report to only run for these golfers. So you might have your Thursday hackers that you want to send the handicap report to the person that runs that group, or you want to run it just for that group. You can do that. Pretty straightforward in terms of how to get those golfers in there. You just select them over here on the left, and you'll move them over on the right, and they will get moved over there. And then alternatively, you can remove people from the list as well by clicking on them and moving them over. And if you want to make a new group, add new group here. Pretty straightforward. But this is a great tool to use especially if you're running those reports for a certain subset of golfers at your course. So that concludes this training webinar. Again, if you have, or a seminar, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at handicap@gam.org, or I'll just put it up on the screen, handicap@gam.org, or 248-478-9242, extension 114. And hope this helps in terms of learning some new information about the World Handicap System and the upgraded GHIN products. And we wish you all the best in this time, unique time. Be safe. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. We're here to help. Thank you so much and have a great day.